I'm going to use a little bit of a different approach today, talk a little bit about history, and then where that's taken us as we've evolved in a number of energy issues. Some of this will probably look pretty familiar to a number of you as well. The first one, obviously, with the wind and solar conference, we probably ought to be talking about wind, and I'll back up. The two wind turbines on the left are the ones that Congressman Fortenberry referred to. Those were the second wind turbines put in the state of Nebraska. They were put in 1998. They're also currently the oldest operating wind turbines in the state. They are quite small. They're 660 kW apiece. But then the evolution of that for LES was in the 2009 to 2012 timeframe, we acquired, I guess, interest in 4 different projects that MPPD was doing to really amount to about 30 megawatts. And then, basically in 2015, we made significant acquisition of about 270 additional megawatts in 3 projects, actually spread among Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska. And those projects referenced above. But when you look at what that's meant to our portfolio, if you compare the production out of the wind facilities to our retail load, we produced about 40% last year of our retail load from wind and about 50% total in our renewable portfolio. So if you're using that standard, which is the common one used for resource portfolio standards, we've hit both the 40% for wind and a 50% overall. Second piece is solar. On the left, believe it or not, is a solar house LES worked on in conjunction with the university in 1980. So that's been around a little while. And then on the right, you'll see kind of an evolution of other projects. In 2014, we added a 50 kW solar panel on top of a training center. The one on the top is a 5 megawatt. Basically, it was as close as we had, of course, at that time to a utility scale solar in the state. And we took an approach to that many of you might recall was a little different. Originally, when we did it, we allowed voluntary contributions if people wanted to do it. We then evolved into doing virtual net metering associated with it, allowing people to buy a panel. And now we're stepping up in January this year. We're going to allow people to buy half panels, and we're going to finance them for up to 3 years, trying to get as much engagement and provide as much opportunity for people across the spectrum. Whether or not they have the ability to site solar on their own home, they can get the economies of scale with this. And we refer to that actually as a community solar project. And finally, at the bottom is one of the latest additions of something we've been working toward. It's a neighborhood solar. And people talk about solar gardens. One of the things we did a few years ago is we adopted a renewable generation rate that would facilitate people where you might have a neighborhood that would want to get together and do a project and sell it into the system without having load directly connected to it. That's the first one that we've got. It's actually here in Lincoln in the Beaches neighborhood. Energy storage. We mostly hear about energy storage today. People are talking about batteries and things like that. The upper left is actually ice storage that's been that we installed at the Rokeby Generating Station in 1991. And it was, to our knowledge, the first use of ice storage to augment power generation. It's used for the inlet air on gas turbines. That was also expanded in subsequent projects. And below that in 1991 was a thermal energy storage project that was linked with the Hall of Justice here in town. That's through the District Energy Corporation that we operate and administer on behalf of Leon County and the city of Lincoln under an interlocal agreement. Now on the right is a thermal energy storage project that was done basically by the university through Nucorp, which is an interlocal agreement between LES and the university. That's the second thermal energy storage for the university. The other one was done, I think, in 2013 on the East Campus. This one's on City Campus. The interesting thing when you look at these projects, however, is those projects, the 2 thermal storage projects for the university, reduce their demand enough that saves them $1 million a year in demand costs. So pretty impressive when you look at the impact of being able to do those kinds of projects. Electric vehicles, we're all talking about that when we think about electrification in our industry now. On the left, you'll see the first car, and I believe that one was 1980 when LES had their first electric car. Rumor has it that Elon Musk saw that and it gave him an idea. So maybe that's not true. I think I made that up. If you look at the photo on the top right, we're doing a 2-year study right now that's actually kicking off this month. Over a third of the electric vehicles in our territory, which is plus or minus 100, 100 is third, there's about 300 in our area, will be using this device to give us data with respect to how people charge, where they charge, and those characteristics. As a part of their participation, they'll get that data that they don't have, we'll get it, and we'll be able to better figure out how we want to deal with both incenting and also preparing for electric vehicles on how people in the Midwest in our kind of climate will be charging their vehicles. In addition to that, and just as a representation, we can talk about where our fleet is. In 2019, almost 75% of our passenger car fleet at LES will either be electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, or hybrid cars. Our sustainable energy program has been around since about 2009. And it's ranged from not only education for customers, but incentives for heat pumps, incentives for lighting, a lot of things. At this point, we're making some transitions in that program as well, but we're also doing a peak rewards, which is a kind of a bring your own thermostat, so we can control thermostats on peak, do pre-cooling and that type of thing. But the effect of this sustainable energy program has been basically a reduction of our energy load by about 3%. And if you couple that with what we're doing through the District Energy Corporation and Nucor, both of those interlocal agreements we have, and SEP, we've got about a 5% reduction in our overall demand over that period as well. And back to the District Energy Corporation, one of the things that program has done is gives you the ability to have a lot more efficient use of providing heating and thermal services to significant areas of the community. The first one I mentioned earlier, which is on the left, that's the Hall of Justice. If you move over to the right, you'll see the top right actually is the West Haymarket, and we're serving Pinnacle Bank Arena and many other customers in the West Haymarket area. The second one down actually is the adult detention facility or jail, county jail. The interesting thing about all these projects is none of them are exactly the same. Some of them are basically large well fields with ground source heat pumps used. Some of them are done with conventional thermal energy, for example, boilers and chillers, but of course high efficiency ones, so there's different ways. And even our own operations center that's under construction, bottom right, will be served by that. And in 2019, we should also have the state prison will be on a DEC facility as well. The Terry Bundy Generating Station. I like this one because there's all sorts of things there that people really don't realize. This project is a combined cycle generation facility, one of only 2 in the state. MPPD has the other. For those of you that just aren't familiar with that technology, it's pretty neat in itself because combined cycle plants take gas turbines, basically jet engines. They take the thermal, if you think about when you see a jet in the sky, you see the thermal trail behind a gas turbine, which is the jet engine. They take the thermal part of that, they run it through a heat recovery steam generator, which is really an unfired boiler, use that as the heat source that makes steam, and then you take the steam and put it in a steam turbine, therefore the term combined cycle plant. So Terry Bundy is a combined cycle plant that has aeroderivative gas turbines as the gas turbine source. Aeroderivative turbines are considered quick start turbines, so you can bring them up very fast, really important in these days with respect to trying to match renewable load. But even neater, if you think about this facility, is it's using wastewater effluent for cooling, which is pretty unique. On top of that, we've got bypass stacks on it, and what does that really mean and why? A bypass stack allows you basically to operate them in simple cycle quickly if you want to and if you need them for basically immediate load, because it takes several hours to get the steam turbine up in order to be able to run the entire plant in combined cycle. So it was constructed that way. There's actually not a lot of plants in the U.S. that have active damper systems for bypass, but this one does that, which gives us a lot more flexibility not only to support the market, but support renewables as well with respect to the response time. And really, that's not the only thing unique about that plant. If you look at the lower left, we've also done landfill gas at that project as well. There's 4.5 megawatts worth of generation there. It's landfill gas. And then the latest addition on the right, which is a little bit hard to understand what that is, but believe it or not, that's just an electric blanket that's on the steam turbine. And the reason it's there is to shorten the startup time for the turbine and to take less stress off of it, so that it's actually better able to be more responsive in the market as well as reduce our maintenance costs with respect to the wear and tear on the turbine. Overall, our resource portfolio based on a nameplate basis now is running as indicated in this slide, where coal is about 30%, the renewables is about 34%, and about 35% for our natural gas, roughly out of a 1,300 megawatt portfolio. Carbon intensity, something everyone's always concerned about. Basically, the short version is, if you look at this, and this is carbon intensity basically on the carbon emissions per unit of energy, per kilowatt hour in this case, has dropped about 33% since 2010. Now, when we talk about all these things, last week was Public Power Week, and I can't walk away from the podium, particularly with Tim and Tom coming up here, without just doing a little bit of a public power speech. And that applies basically to all of us. When you look at all of us, we're all locally owned, locally governed, different ways and different structures for everyone in the room. Some of them may be a city council, some may be independent boards, appointed boards, elected boards, but it's all listening to our customers that makes that special. But there are other things that make public power special, and many of you know that kind of the bedrock of that is reliability and rates. In LES's case, and really I think it's reflective of the entire state, we basically do a national rate survey. Overall, we were the 8th lowest in a national rate survey of over 100 large utilities. And, of course, when we do the Big Ten rate comparison, which we're really fond of, we're number 1 for the 3rd year in a row. We've only been doing this for 3 years. We think we make it longer than that. I might say that we're trying to emulate the volleyball team. I won't say any more about that. But the other thing that's really special about public power is customer engagement. Having the CEOs here talking to you all is customer engagement. When we do projects like solar or the electric vehicle stuff, budget rates, we have public meetings, we have people come. The engagement is basically across a wide span. Recently, in fact, some of the folks are here in the audience, we had the Husker Power Plant folks came to one of our board meetings. Usually we take public comment, but we don't engage. In this particular case, the board waived those rules and had engagement with the folks that came to talk to them about that. Those are the types of things that make public power special and unique. It's not only innovation, the things that I've shown you can be probably emulated across all the utilities in here doing different things. Congressman Fortenberry referred to some of those things as well. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us unique. Thank you for your time. I hope you all have a good conference.